Rapper Kid Cudi leaves federal court after taking the stand at Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking trial and tells the jury about his Porsche being torched while he was dating Cassie.
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me.
I look at 9 moments from the rapper's testimony and what had the courtroom laughing.
Not behind you. It's not behind you. It's right in front of you. It's right in front of you. You testify like.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Kid Cudi, of course, is a rapper. He's an actor and a producer. But this week, he added Diddy trial witness to his list of titles. His legal name is actually Scott Cudi. And he walked into court, raised his right hand, and as any other witness would, swore to tell the truth. You might be thinking, I thought this trial was about sex trafficking and prostitution. Well, it is. But Sean Combs also faces a racketeering conspiracy charge, or RICO. He's accused of using his businesses to carry out and cover up crimes. And Kid Cudi, the government alleges, is the victim of one of those crimes, specifically arson. Combs, for his part, has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, and he maintains his relationship with ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura was one that involved domestic violence, but not sex trafficking. And Cassie is the connection between Combs and Kid Cudi. Back in 2011, Kid Cudi, or Scott Cudi, testified that he and Cassie were dating. He believed that she was broken up with Sean Combs at the time, but that may not have been completely true. Kid Cudi took the stand wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and a white shirt, and he told the jury about that night in December 2011 when Cassie called him very upset. Cudi testified, well, I got a call from Cassie around 5:30 or 6 a.m., and she told me that Sean Combs had found out about us. I was really confused, but she asked me to pick her up. She sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared, so I went to go pick her up, and yeah. Cudi went on to explain why he was confused. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson asked, you testified that Ms. Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out? Cudi answered that me and her were dating. Johnson asked, and you also testified that you were confused when you heard that. Cudi answered yes. Johnson asked, why were you confused? Cudi answered, because I didn't think she was dealing with him. Johnson asked, and you mentioned that you went to pick her up. Is that right? Cudi answered, yes. Cudi testified that he drove Ventura to a hotel in Los Angeles.
You're never really single from a man until he decides. I don't know where I heard that. But it's very true. It's very unfortunate, you know what I mean? Because I feel like as individuals, as people, we should be able to make our own decisions, even though, you know, there's levels. But, you know, it is true. If you've been with somebody and, you know, you break up with them, but they haven't accepted that, then technically in their eyes, you guys are not broken up yet. So maybe in her eyes, she had told him, we're done, but he didn't feel that way.
Angeles, about 15 minutes from his home. Then he got a call from a woman who was a friend of Cassie's and an assistant of Sean Combs. Her name was Capricorn Clark. Clark said that Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at the moment? Cudi said, she was in a car outside of my house waiting for them. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at that moment? Attorney Brian Steele objected, and it was overruled. Cudi testified, in my house. Johnson asked, after you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next? Cudi answered, I got in my car and went to my house. Johnson asked, that phone call? No. Johnson followed up, did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call? Cudi answered, no. Cudi said he drove to his house. It was a 15-minute drive or so from the hotel, as I mentioned, where he was with Cassie. And on the way, he called Sean Combs. He had his number from years ago. He described what he said to Sean Combs. Cudi testified, I'm going to be very candid. I said, mother effer, you in my house? And he was like, what's up? I was like, "Mother effer, are you in my house?" And he said, "I just want to talk to you." I was like, "I am on my way over right now." He was like, "I'm here." Miscuddy said that Combs's voice was calm. He drove to his house, which he said had security cameras, but they weren't working that night. When he arrived, Miscuddy said the cameras appeared as if they had been moved to the side. Miscuddy said, "Some gifts that I bought for my family were opened, some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom." Our content shows just how important personal safety is, and that is especially true when it comes to protecting your privacy online. You would be absolutely shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like at Cassie at her parents' home in Connecticut. Johnson asked, directing your attention to January of 2012, did there come a time when you learned that your car had caught on fire? Miscuddy answered yes. Johnson asked, how did you learn that your car caught fire? Miscuddy answered, my dog's babysitter called me in the morning. Now keep in mind, it's 6:30 or 7 in the morning. The questioning continued. Johnson asked, what was your understanding of where your dog's babysitter was located when she called you? Miscuddy said, at my house. Johnson asked, was it your understanding that your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time? Miscuddy answered, yes. Johnson asked, and what did your dog's babysitter say to you about what she saw? Miscuddy answered, she told me my car was on fire. Johnson asked, was anyone else present at your house at the time? Miscuddy said no. Johnson asked, where were you? Miscuddy said, I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house. Johnson asked, approximately how far away from your house were you? Miscuddy answered, like 45 minutes or something like that. Johnson asked, where was your car at the time your babysitter called? Miscuddy said, in the driveway. Miscuddy said his friend Chip took photos of the Porsche as he drove back to his house. The photos show a hole in the top of the Porsche. There's also damage to the driver's seat from where the Molotov cocktail left burn marks, and there's damage to the door. The car was so badly damaged, Miscuddy said it couldn't be repaired. When he arrived at his house, He said the bottle from the Molotov cocktail was on the ground. It had been in the driver's seat. When asked his reaction to his car being torched, it was very simple. Miscuddy said, what the F word? Miscuddy said the cops were at his house and he filed a police report, and it was his understanding this was no accident. A couple of days later, Miscuddy said he had his manager set up a meeting with Combs through his head of security, D-Rock, at the Soho house. Miscuddy testified, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall was all windows, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Yeah, it was just me and him in the room. No security, nobody. Miscuddy said, we discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date to what it was to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up, and I took her word for it, yeah. Johnson asked, what was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting? Miscuddy said, very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice. Johnson asked, what was your reaction to his demeanor? Miscuddy said it was very off-put.
You sure he wasn't offering you baby oil? Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny, but it's funny.
It was weird that he was so calm. Miscuddy said Cassie then showed up, and he testified he was upset to find...
Anybody who is too calm in situations where they shouldn't be too calm is like a real big red flag with who they are as a person,
Find out that she had gone back to Sean Combs. He told the jury, quote, she pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened and, Miscuddy testified, yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, what are we going to do about my car? I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away and I could look at him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay. I took my hand from his, and he said, wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem? I was like, you said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word. He said, yeah. I was like, that's it. When asked, again, Miscuddy said Combs's tone of voice was very calm, and after that day, There were no more break-ins at his home and no more car fires. A couple of years later, Muscati said he saw Combs at the Soho house again, this time with his daughter. He said Combs said, "Man, I just want to apologize for everything and all of the BS." There were no more conflicts with Sean Combs, and Muscati said he made peace with it. Then came the cross-examination by attorney Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug. Steele set out to score some points, and he did. Steele questioned Muscati about whether he knew that fingerprints and DNA samples were taken from his Porsche back in 2012. Muscati said he called police about the incident a few times, but was not aware that DNA from the car came back as a female sample. Steele also pointed out that there were no sightings of Sean Combs around Muscati's property. Then the conversation turned to Cassie Ventura. Muscati confirmed that Cassie ended their relationship in January of 2012, and he was confused because they had been talking and seeing each other for about a year. And he said at that time he wasn't aware that Cassie was seeing Sean Combs at the same time. Steele asked, "Ms. Ventura was not frank with you, true?" Muscati answered, "True." Steele asked, "She played you. That was your words, right?" Muscati said yes. Steele asked, "You had no clue. When she played you, she was convincing about that, right?" Muscati said, "No clue." Steele asked, "You were with her a lot, right?" Muscati said, "Mm-hmm." Steele asked, "True?" Muscati said yes. Steele then pointed out that Sean Combs actually asked Muscati in 2011 to do a song with Cassie Ventura. That was how the two met. Steele asked, "You were in a studio doing your art with Ms. Ventura, that true?" Muscati said yes. Steele asked, "And that's how you guys really became close, right?" Muscati said, "We were cool before." Muscati asked, "And this didn't hurt your relationship, right? It was nice. You enjoyed the time with her, true?" Muscati said, "Yeah, it was truly just friends at that time." Steele asked, "Mr. Combs wasn't around you and Ms. Ventura when you were with her, right?" Muscati said no. Steele asked, "And she wasn't getting all these text messages from him, to your knowledge, when you were with her, right?" Muscati said, "Not to my knowledge." Steele also confirmed with Muscati that Cassie told him that Combs was physically abusive toward her, but she never told Muscati that Sean Combs sexually abused her. Steele also got Muscati to say that Cassie Ventura was living two different lives when she was spending time with him. And during that meeting with Combs at the Soho house in 2012, after his car was torched, he said Combs was gracious, made no threats, and had no weapons on him. During redirect, Emily Johnson used Muscati to remind the jury about incidents where Cassie and Capricorn Clark confided in him about Combs's volatile behavior. Toward the end, Muscati admitted that it was that behavior that made him walk away from his relationship with Cassie. Johnson asked, "Why did your relationship with Ms. Ventura?"
I would leave too, because that's too much. Like, you gotta choose one, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing, like I said, it's one thing if she for sure broke up with him, they haven't, she hasn't made an effort to see him or anything, but he couldn't accept the breakup and he was bothering her. That's one thing. But if she's going back and forth still, she's still dating him, but then lying that she's dating him, but dating somebody else and doing, like, no. Like you said, that the drama was just getting out of hand, kind of wanted to give her some space. 100% respect that. 100%.
And despite having feelings for her, Muscati said the drama was just getting out of hand and kind of wanted to give her some space. Johnson said, "What drama are you talking about?" Muscati said the break-in and everything. Johnson asked, "Why did you want to give it space?" Muscati said, "Just feels like things were just getting out of hand, and for my safety, for her safety, I just thought." Muscati's responses prompts an objection in a sidebar where the parties go back and forth about whether or not it's proper for the jury to hear the rest of what he was going to say. Steele told Judge at a sidebar that he was going to move for a mistrial because he expected Muscati to answer that Combs was violent, and he had been told that Combs had had other people killed. The defense is adamant it's highly prejudicial against Combs, but the government says they're just trying to get him to talk about his safety concerns that he had at the end of his relationship with Cassie. Ultimately, the judge decided that Emily Johnson must move on from this type of questioning. The testimony of Kid Cudi ended with him telling the jury that he believed that Sean Combs lied to him. So, what was it like in the courtroom when Kid Cudi was testifying? Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime was there. So, Elizabeth, were the jurors, did it seem like they knew who Kid Cudi was when he walked in and took the stand?
Yeah, it didn't seem that way from what I could tell, but I feel like from everyone in the gallery, they were there and they were ready to see Kid Cudi, see him walk inside that courtroom. It felt kind of like a movie moment a little bit where everyone's turned around and then all of a sudden he just walks across to the witness stand, takes his seat, does the oath, all that. But him coming in, he was super casual. He had a motorcycle jacket, he had a white t-shirt on. Even like from other witnesses that I could see testifying, they're always in suits, they're
Mm-hmm.
in more professional type of wear and that thing. But as far as Kid Cudi is concerned, yeah, motorcycle jacket, his earring, his jeans, just walked up to the stand pretty casual. I didn't see the cigarette smoking or anything like that. But, when he was on the stand, he was very casual even throughout. He just seemed like he was just there to kind of speak his piece, say his part, and then just kind of move on from it. And he seemed like he was just kind of just ready to get this part over with for sure.
And he seemed like he was a little bit of a charmer, actually, on the stand, and I'm getting that just from the transcripts because it sounds like he was just authentic. He was just
Yeah.
him, and there were some laughs, from what I understand, in the
Yeah.
courtroom from some of his testimony. Even though this is not a laughing matter, tell
Right.
me what happened with the laughing.
Yeah, so he had some interesting one liners when he was on the stand testifying, a lot during the direct. So, one of the big things was just his reaction to his car being blown up with a Molotov cocktail. And ASU,
The what the
AUSA,
f?
yeah, they were, AUSA Emily Johnson was just like, "What was your reaction to everything?" And then he just candidly said, "What the F?" Obviously, I can't say, the real
Yeah,
way
I
he had
think we would all
expressed
have
it.
that reaction if our car
Yeah,
was blown up.
exactly. Exactly. And so he was very just real while he was on the stand. And to your point, Anjanette, very authentic because when he didn't understand a question, he would be like, "Say what now?" And just like very casual in tone, even though he's testifying in federal court and all of that stuff. And then another big moment where he got kind of a big reaction from the gallery and some of the jurors too was just him explaining just the meeting at
I don't
Soho
know.
House
I
where,
I I believe in the whole professional thing, but at the same time, I'm not part of the, especially when you're a witness. It's like I'm just here. I'm a witness. I don't work in the federal go. I don't work in this building. I'm not a employee here. Like I don't have to have a suit if I don't want to. I'm a witness. What matters is my words. What matters is what I'm saying. My my what I'm witnessing to, not how I'm dressed. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's different when it's you, like when it's like you're up defending yourself or it's your situation. I feel like that's, you're representing yourself at that point. So I feel like professionalism, how you're dressed, really does matter. But as a witness, like why does that matter so much, the way you're dressed? Like it's one thing if he came in with a, you know baggy t-shirt or a baggy shirt and sweatpants and slides. Like that's one thing. But I feel like he was, like, that was a proper outfit, like in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it's not a suit and tie, but who gives a shit? Like he's a witness. He's not, you know what I mean? It's not his trial. It's weird. It's weird that that's even a conversation to me.
him, Diddy, and Cassie all met together to kind of hash everything out. He explained that when he was first brought in, he was brought in by Diddy's security guard, D Rock. And then he said Diddy was just sitting over there in that portion of Soho House in a room over there, just looking like a Marvel supervillain. Those were literally his words inside the courtroom. And a lot of people just kind of laughed at this moment. I don't think Diddy necessarily found this particularly funny, but he definitely got a big reaction from everyone in the courtroom.
But that paints a picture because I think we can all kind of see that, like a Bruce Wayne moment where you walk it, you envision that. You walk into
Yeah.
a room and there's a big window and there's a guy standing there. Um, we can kind of all, it paints a picture of what he encountered.
Yeah.
It sounds nuts. And then he basically told the jury that he thought Sean Combs was lying.
Yeah.
Which I found amazing that was allowed in. He thought Sean Combs was lying when Sean Combs was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Your
Yeah.
car got blown up. What do you
Yeah.
mean?"
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that
Did
was
he lying
a
about
conversation.
everything?
that was a conversation that they had outside of the court. So that's a conversation they had in a private room, privately. That's what happened. That's valid. It's one thing if Diddy's on the stand or whatever, and he says something, and he's there, and he's like, I feel like he's lying. It's one thing to accuse someone of lying on the stand about what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Versus he said to Diddy in that private conversation that they had in like outside of the court, and he accused him of lying. You know what I'm saying? Because even you can tell by the conversation that he said that he had, that he was basically saying, okay, so you're saying that you didn't burn my car. Okay, then that's what it is, because I feel like that's your story. That's where you like, he basically gave him a window. He gave him space to tell the truth, basically. And so that's what you want to leave this on, is that you didn't do it. But I know I have a huge feeling, not even a question, that you did it. But I'm just here for the truth. You know what I'm saying? That's it.
Yeah, I was surprised that that part got in, because that was kind of more towards the end of his testimony where he kind of got that little portion in. But yeah, he seemed like he knew who was behind this the entire time. When he was asked whether it was accidental or intentional, he was firm in believing that this was an intentional act. I know kind of under the cross-examination, they were kind of trying to frame it as maybe someone else did it. There were female fingerprints found.
Female DNA, yeah.
Exactly. But he seemed firm that Sean Combs, aka Diddy, might have been the one responsible for what had happened to his car, which was never able to be repaired after the fact.
And of course, there were never criminal charges filed, so we have to be clear on that. But Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into the courtroom where we can't have cameras. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Kid Cudi didn't say anything as he left federal court after testifying. He got into a Cadillac Escalade and left, but he posted a video on X.
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So let's talk about Kid Cudi's testimony. I want to bring in Nima Rahmani. He's an entertainment lawyer, also a former federal prosecutor, so he knows all about this stuff. So obviously, they're bringing Kid Cudi and Nima to talk about this thing about the car, and the car being blown up or set on, the Molotov cocktail. It wasn't really blown up, but there was obvious damage to the vehicle. And this plays into the RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge. Does this really, in your opinion, really back up that charge?
I think it does, Anjanette. Maybe this is the former federal prosecutor in me. This is why. Cassie testified that Combs made the threat directly to blow up the car. Maybe we expected a kind of a mob-style explosion, but arson doesn't require that, right? A Molotov cocktail in your porch that burns it is enough. And the reason I like this is, obviously, the defense got out that, it wasn't definitively tied to Combs and that the DNA in the vehicle was a female's. Right. But I think there's enough circumstantial evidence, given the threat and the timing, for the jurors to believe that it was Combs. And I like these types of predicate acts because it allows the prosecution to somehow potentially get to racketeering without proving sex trafficking. I think they've proven sex trafficking, but let's say the jurors think that this was all consensual, the freak-offs. You have arson, you have extortion, you have blackmail, you have kidnapping, you have other potential activities that can get you that pattern of racketeering without sex trafficking.
So I want to break that down a little bit, and we're going to get to that, but you made two good points there. On cross-examination, Brian Steele, got out that, there was female DNA that they tested for in the car. So, we don't know that Combs's DNA was ever linked to this. He's accused of running a criminal enterprise. So it's not like he would have gotten his hands dirty and done this himself. He would have had somebody else do it, possibly. But, they didn't explicitly tie it to Combs, but Combs apparently said a couple years later, hey man, I'm sorry about all that. That was my girl. I thought we were homies. So he kind of apologized for it. But then Brian Steele also brings up this whole thing about, Cassie playing Kid Cudi. He felt that she had played him. And that, I think, could be very powerful for the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that could be powerful for the jury? Because it goes to possibly, as you brought up, you don't think they've proven sex trafficking, but it could go to this whole thing about Cassie, the defense argument that she's an opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the government has proven sex trafficking, but I know people watching, some of them don't believe they have. But you're right, Angela. Brian Steele's one of the best. I mean, obviously, we covered him for many months on the Young Thug case. It seems like a never-ending trial. And so the fact that he was added to the team to cross-examine this witness really shows how good he is. I agree with you. I thought he got 3 very good points out. The first is with respect to the arson, that really there's no direct evidence tying Diddy to it. Maybe the threat and the apology years later. I also thought that there was good evidence that Cassie might have talked about physical harm that she suffered by Combs, but she never mentioned any sexual assault or sexual abuse. That was a very important point that came out during cross. And then, like you said, the fact that Cassie was playing both of them, I thought that was a good point that came out as well. Maybe she wasn't the victim that she's saying that she is. Again, not saying I believe it, but what you see the defense trying to do here
you have to look at all directions. You have to look at all ways. You have to think about everything that everybody is saying, all the details. They all matter. Every single thing that every single person is saying matters. You know what I'm saying? And then you go from there, you put everything together and you try to come up with because at the end of the day, we want to know the truth. You know what I mean? You want to know the truth. So we do our best, they do their best, and we do our best too as civilians, as people, who listen to we've listened to Cassie's music. We've listened to, we've followed these people throughout the years. Like, it matters to us. It's part of our lives. We want to know the truth too about these people. So we're going to do our best to figure it out. You have to look at everything, not just piece. Oh, disregard that. No, that matters. Why did they say this? What does this lead to? Why would they say this? You know what I'm saying? Like, everything
build
matters.
Cassie up. And this was a theme even in their opening statement when Tenny Garagos got up there and said that this is a strong, capable woman who was making her own decisions, and she chose to participate in these freak-offs. And she's the one who broke up with Combs years later. She was dating other guys at the same time. So I understand, and I like what the defense is doing, and I think that is really part of their strategy in this case.
Just because she made decisions that we may not agree with, that may seem, a bit odd or not really acceptable, does not mean that other things didn't happen behind the scenes. You can't say, oh, because this happened, this didn't happen. No, you can't say that. Just because she's now, we're not looking at Cassie like, okay, now she's completely innocent, she's a complete victim. We can't look at her like that. But it does not mean that she wasn't a victim to certain things that happened in her life, just because she's making these decisions that we may not agree with particularly.
So let's go now to the RICO charge, because when I think of RICO charges and racketeering conspiracy, it's rooted in, and it came from, the mob. And I think of the mob setting up businesses, the rackets, to commit crimes, or they're running businesses to cover up crimes. This seems a little bit different to me because, yes, Sean Combs was an entrepreneur setting up Bad Boy Records and running, fashion labels, all these different things. And it seems like the government is saying he used his business to cover up and commit crimes. So it seems almost kind of like a little bit different in that respect. But you're saying you think they will get to the racketeering charge, because right now I'm seeing little pieces of that. I'm seeing, obviously, we saw the extortion with Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother. Now we're seeing a possible arson. No, it sounds like it probably was tied to Sean Combs, but not definitively. You think they will get there, that they'll be proving that Bad Boy Records was a criminal enterprise?
I do. And like you said, Anjanette, historically, racketeering was used for the mob or cartels or criminal street gangs, right? You actually have a criminal enterprise. And that's how it was used for decades since the law was passed in the 70s. And obviously, states ended up passing their own version of RICO statutes. But we have seen a tremendous growth in use of RICO and racketeering statutes. Obviously, we saw it in other sex trafficking cases, R. Kelly and Nexium. We even saw it in the Donald Trump Fulton County case in Georgia. So this is a great tool for prosecutors. I'm not saying that it's appropriate, but prosecutors love it because with RICO, you bring in a lot of people and you bring in a lot of evidence into the case. You can have RICO acts that are state charges. You can have RICO acts that are outside the statute of limitations. And by bringing everyone in, you can really lean on them if you're a prosecutor. You can get people to flip and cooperate. Otherwise, they can be charged with a RICO conspiracy, even if they were just buying, baby oil and lube and condoms for the freak offs and cleaning them up afterwards, right? Even though they didn't participate in the sex acts, if they were co-conspirators or they're aiding and abetting, they could be charged substantively in a RICO conspiracy. But let's just take a step back and go through some of these elements. Like you said, the criminal enterprise, it doesn't have to be a rigid organization. Under the law, it's just a loose association of two or more people. And if there's an agreement to do something unlawful, those are elements of a RICO conspiracy.
Right. Very interesting. Because a lot of people are saying, this is thin. This may be overcharged. But it sounds like you don't think that.
Well, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I'm a current victim's lawyer, so I might be a little bit biased, but I think there is enough here. You have Sean Diddy Combs, the head of this organization, right? And what he does, whether it's extorting Regina Ventura, he has his people do it for him, right? Whether it's blowing up the car, even the threat that he made. Regina Ventura said that Combs said that it wouldn't be him personally who hurts Cassie and Kid Cudi. It would be someone else. And in fact, Combs would be out of the country at the time. So he's not doing this himself. Look, there's a reason.
Why would he?
You have Kaplan and James, the personal assistants, say that, look, if I was buying...
He's not a dumb man. He has intelligence. Why would he do it himself? Why would he not try to cover up his tracks? He knows what he's doing. Every single step that he takes, he knows. That's why he is where he is today. That's why he's gotten to the level that he's gotten, because he's an intelligent man. So why would he lack in some places? Why? If he is who he is.
Buying, food or flights, I would charge the company card. But if I was doing something for the freak offs, I would be paying cash. And, Combs had his infamous Louis Vuitton bag with thousands and thousands of dollars in cash. Look, there's nothing wrong with paying cash, but when you're using your company card for certain things and you're paying cash for drugs and sex workers and, lube and condoms, I mean, the jurors aren't stupid.
Right.
That is illegal activity. That's why you're paying the cash, and that's why you're having your underlings do it.
Let's go back to Kid Cudi now. So who do you think scored more points with Kid Cudi, the government or the defense? Because it seemed to me that they both scored points with him.
I thought it was a good cross-examination, but I really like him as a witness for the government. I think it's a very strong way to end before a 4-day weekend, because you got two things out of it. Obviously a jealous Combs who broke into his house, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. And it just shows how dangerous he may be. And then you have this Molotov cocktail in his car. So, and really the way it ended, obviously Kid Cudi said he got played, but he also said that he broke up with Cassie because he was worried for his own safety and he didn't want to deal with the drama. This just goes to show that sort of pattern of violence. And really paints a picture of a dangerous individual for the jury.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it. They liked him in that courtroom. The jury apparently liked him. A lot of people liked him. It sounds like he made a really good witness. So he even posted on X about it afterwards. So, you know, it is what it is, right? I mean, I wish we had cameras in there, but all we can do is look at the testimony and then talk about it afterwards.
But it also makes it so much more alluring. You know, the fact that we can't see and then we want to know what the heck is going on. You know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anjanette. I'm sure we'll talk real soon.
I think we will. Thank you. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so
Ooh. One step at a time here, figure out the truth. That's all we want to know. That's all we want to know is the truth. No more lies. Tired of the lies, man. Especially it's people, like I said, people who we've been looked up. So many people have been looked up to, have been inspired by, and we just feel lied to. We just feel like, what the heck is going on? Like, we just want to know the truth. That's the majority of people. Just want to know the truth. Like me, for example, I'm not biased at all. Like, I just want to know the truth. I want to know what the heck has been going on. What went on? What's happening? You know, that's it. You know, I'm not biased towards anybody. I'm not trying to, you know, say, I don't want, you know, Diddy to be this horrible, horrible person, but if that's who he is, I would, you know, it would be nice for the world to know that, you know what I'm saying? Because it can just open your eyes. It can just open your eyes to the way the world is, you know, how dark it can be. It can be very, yes, it can be very beautiful and very, you know, amazing, but it can also be very dark. But anyways, whew. Next video hopefully coming soon. Gonna keep up with this trial, you know. I haven't been watching it too much. I haven't been keeping up with it too much, so I'm gonna start doing that. And yeah, interested to see where it goes. Until next time, peace out.